Hello, I am Damonous. Thank you for joining. So, big thing right now seems to be voter fraud. Now, there's been a lot of other things going on the past few days, and it's been an incredible few days since President Trump has been elected. The amount of activity that's happened, walking back a lot of Obama's bad executive orders and such, implementing new executive orders. But the press and Trump's opponents, whether they be from his own party or not, are fixated on this diversion about voter fraud. And so it began, and I believe it was where Trump indicated in a private meeting that he was still kind of concerned about the popular election results, and that there was probably a massive voter fraud. And as we see in this article from The Hill, Paul Ryan saying, no, there's no evidence of this, right? So he says, I've seen no evidence to that effect. I've made that very, very clear, Ryan told reporters at the Capitol. And this resulted in what I thought was kind of a comical press briefing from Sean Spicer, the new press secretary. Comical in how the media asked this question over and over. So I counted 6 different instances where people asked this question. When I say people, the reporters in the press briefing room. Let's take a look at some of this stuff.
Does the president believe that millions voted illegally in this election, and what evidence do you have of widespread voter fraud in this election, if that's the case?
The president does believe that. He's stated that before. I think he stated his concerns of voter fraud and people voting illegally during the campaign, and he continues to maintain that belief based on studies and evidence that people have presented to him.
Sean, when you were talking about that voter fraud, are you going to ask for an investigation? Is the White House going to formally ask for a probe into this alleged?
I think he won very, very handily with 306 electoral votes in 3 states. He's very comfortable with his win, but I think
Trouble him if he's bringing it up.
I think he was having a discussion with some folks and mentioned something in passing, which has been a long-standing belief that he's maintained. This isn't the first time that you've heard this concern of his.
And there's more.
Just to follow up on Cecilia.
Yeah.
If 3 to 5 million people voted illegally, that is a scandal of astronomical proportions. Doesn't he want to restore Americans' faith in their ballot system? Wouldn't he want an investigation of this?
Well,
This is
Judge
interesting.
Foval, as I've noted several times now, he's believed this for a long time, and I think he won fairly overwhelmingly, so he's not. And look,
I'm asking you, why not investigate something that is
maybe we will.
the biggest scandal in American election?
So this is interesting because she's pushing him now. This is, I think, the first one that actually pushes and says, why doesn't he investigate?
You said the president believes that there was voter fraud. I wonder if you believe that. You were at the Republican National Committee at the time, and Chief of Staff Reince Priebus was the chairman of the RNC at the time. Do you believe there was widespread voter fraud?
My job is not. Look,
How can he be comfortable with his win if he believes
He's very
there was
comfortable with his
3
win.
million votes? Maybe he didn't win.
No, he's very comfortable with his win. It's an electoral-based system. You got 306 electoral votes. 33 of 50 states voted for him. I think, look, Jeff, I've asked him to answer this question twice. He believes.
So here, even a little jab there, oh, maybe you didn't win. And what's that based on? I think that's a CNN reporter living up to their fake news reputation.
First one, and really not to belabor a point here, but you said that the president has believed for a while that there is widespread voter fraud. But only 4 days ago did he get the power of the presidency to be able to do something about it. So why not definitively say that he will investigate if he believes, and the administration's position is that there was massive voter fraud?
Well, first of all, the comment that he made was, he said 3 to 5 million people, could have voted illegally, based on the studies that he's seen. But he's very clear that he won the election based on the 306 electoral votes that he got. We're here on day 2. I think let's not prejudge what we may or may not do in the future.
So, and then if that isn't enough.
Sean, thank you. I just want to be clear about this investigation because it seems like you potentially opened the door for one. Have you discussed
asked a question. There is no investigation. I said it was possible. Anything is possible. It was a hypothetical.
So that's kind of crazy, I think, that, because the press, remember, I feel like they're trying to bait the Trump administration here because they're asking so much. Hey, why don't you investigate? You had two of them there, at least, that were saying, let's investigate this. So what happens? Then the next day, Trump actually indicates that he might do a probe into voter fraud. And of course, that's attacked. I said, I will be asking for a major investigation into voter fraud, including those registered to vote in 2 states, those who are legal, and those who registered to vote who are dead, and many for a long time. Depending on the results, we will strengthen up voting procedures, Trump wrote in 2 consecutive tweets Tuesday morning. Of course, this was met with all sorts of reaction. No proof for fraud claims. Right, so even in his own party, right, John Husted, a Republican, said to let them know, we already have an investigation review, we call it underway. In the past, we found less than 1,000 cases of voter irregularity. We have Debbie Wasserman Schultz telling CNN's New Day that the tweet's message was deeply disturbing. What is most deeply disturbing about his penchant for lying is, so it goes on, and you can take a look at this. I'll give you the links. Other sources, USA Today. But I think what's interesting in here is, if you read through this, the mainstream media is even admitting that there is voter fraud. They're just doing their usual gloss over to say, that information doesn't really matter. So they show the tweets from Trump saying that he's going to call for investigation. And during those briefings, and I'll give you time codes there too, so you can watch those, when Sean Spicer was talking, he did mention a Pew report that had mentioned regularities in voting. And they link it here, and that actually does show in here that approximately 24 million voter registrations are no longer valid or significantly inaccurate. More than 1.8 million deceased individuals are listed as voters. Approximately 2.75 million people have registrations in more than one state. Going back to the USA Today article, there's this part that says, nonetheless, of the Old Dominion professors who penned the original study, they're referring to another study, Jesse Richmond assumed the highest rate of non-citizen voting from his study and assumed that 80% voted for Clinton, determining that such a rate of fraud would add less than 800,000 votes to Clinton's total, not enough to swing the popular vote as Trump had suggested. Okay, but that's one metric alone, right? 800,000, if that's based on a report that's of any value, that's a good way towards, that's almost 1 million. So, it's nothing to minimize, I would think. And based on those other metrics we saw from the Pew report, that could also prove out Mr. Trump's theory, President Trump's theory. Let's look at some real, pretty hardcore proof of voter fraud that occurred, and it was in benefit of the Democratic Party. Project Veritas did some great undercover videos. They do a lot they've been doing it for years, but they focused a lot during this election, and this is some great stuff if you haven't seen it.
So we're at 3303 Yorktown Road here in North Philadelphia, and I went in there undercover, said I didn't know who to vote for. I just moved here, but I'm not really, I'm not really familiar with who's running here, you know what I mean? Okay. You guys have recommendations on who I should do?
You know we vote for a president, right?
I know that, I just don't know all the other ones.
Okay. So, let me do some campaign, okay?
That'd be great. I mean,
And he can pay some literature so he knows who he's voting for.
the election official walks out and gives me a sample Democratic ballot. That is against the law. She can.
So there's one case where, and they've got other clips and such, but the real bombshell that Project Veritas did is when they went under the cover and had Scott Foval, who was with Americans United for Change, and you have to really go to their channel. They got some great videos, like this one, where they got embedded with these democratic-leaning groups, political action committees, who were supposed to stay separate from the DNC, Democratic National Committee, or Convention, whatever you want to say. But they're actually colluding, and they have proof of this with the people they caught on video. Now this one, though, goes even further, and they give you a little clip at the beginning.
The plan that was discussed was how to bring people from one state into another state to vote illegally.
They could invalidate. Well, okay, let's just say in theory, if a major investigation came up of major vote fraud that way, how would they prove it and who would they charge? Are they going to charge each individual? Oh, sorry. Are they going to charge each individual with voter fraud? See, that's what they're going to go after the facilitator for conspiracy, which they can prove. One thing if all these people drive up in their personal cars, there's a bus involved, that changes the dynamic. So it's the legality. Well, yeah, you can prove conspiracy if there's a bus. Yeah. If there are cars, it's much harder to prove. And there's enough.
So, in here, their undercover agent from Project Veritas is speaking with Scott Foval about plans to go take voters from one state, vote in another state, and how they're going to actually have them use their own cars rather than mass transporting them. And even here you can see pay some money to have them do that voting. Really advise you to watch some of these videos. I'll give you the links. Just wrapping that up, on mainstream media there was this, and again this is from Veritas site, but this is a great one here where actually sometimes there's truth that's allowed to be let out on the mainstream media.
So what exactly, I mean, let's get specific about it. Are there examples, we're hearing all day in the press, there's no evidence that there's ever been anybody not qualified to vote voting. I don't know why the press has such an interest in telling us that, but is there evidence, countervailing evidence, that in fact non-citizens have voted in past elections?
Well, if no one in the media except for James O'Keefe will go looking for this, they won't find anything. It was James O'Keefe's videos that showed Democratic operatives actually plotting on camera to commit voter fraud.
So James O'Keefe is the man who runs the Project Veritas channel, or the effort, I should say, because they've got a great team investigating numerous types of frauds. So wrapping it up, I think in that video too with the Fox anchor there, that was a pretty cool statement. I don't know why the mainstream media is so obsessed with telling people that there is no voter fraud. But maybe the better question is why now are they so obsessed with Trump actually making an investigation into the voter fraud and then turning right around and saying, hey, why are you nuts? Why are you going after looking into this voter fraud? There's no voter fraud. They're back to square one, saying there's no possible evidence of voter fraud.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Catch me on patreon.com with exclusive content and on minds.com with abbreviated content.